Alright, so welcome back everybody. So for this video, I wanted to share my favorite board games. So I have gotten to play a lot of board games this year with my friends, which I wasn't really able to do much at all last year. So I decided I would share 20 games, my top 20 favorite games for this video, starting with 11 through 20, okay? And then tomorrow, or at some point, I will be doing my top 10 favorite games with a friend of mine. A friend of mine will be guest starring, and he's going to share his top 10. I'm going to share my top 10, and we've got two friends who will have their top 10s share it as well, with a code name, of course, since they won't be attending. But we'll separate those into two separate videos since there'll be so many more board games on the lists. But we should be able to get through 11 through 20 for this video since it's just going to be me sharing my 11 through 20 favorite board games. So, before we begin, I wanted to do one honorable mention because, you know, out of all the games I've played, there's only one game that I don't own that would have made it to my top 20, but it would have just made it to number 20. So we're just going to leave it as an honorable mention because it's just that close to making it to my top 20. And so I'll share the picture since I don't own the game physically. So the game is Bullfrogs, okay? That would have made my 20 if I owned it. For sure, it would have made it into the top 20. Bullfrogs is a game by Renegade Studios. It's a game where you're going to be placing frogs out on lily pads, and then it's kind of like area control because whoever has the most of their frogs on the lily pad will get to claim it. So that's how that works, which is really interesting. So, and then of course, the lily pad sinks. And so then you can try to save as many of your frogs as you can by having them hop on to nearby lily pads. So that's a very fascinating game. And there's even some bullfrogs that you might want to try to make it to the very middle of the game, which has got this big, huge log that they can jump onto. And the majority of the people who have their frogs on that, that's also area control as well. And bullfrogs are worth a lot more points than the regular frogs. So it's kind of interesting and strategic trying to get your bullfrogs onto that middle log. But that's basically bullfrogs. That's basically the theming of the game. So that's an honorable mention. So let's go with number 20. So here's my favorite number 20 game. So Dingos Dreams by Red Raven Games. Now this game is really hard to attain these days, but it's a very fun game. It's a very short little game. It's very similar to Bingo. Very easy to learn. Definitely a game, definitely an icebreaker game. And I've had a lot of fun time playing this game, especially with those who aren't really gamers. This game is perfect for those who aren't really gamers. So that's Dingos Dreams, my number 20. All right, so number 19. Number 19 is another game from Red Raven Games. This one is called Islebound. And in this game, one of the things I like about this game is you can train sea serpents to help you out. They will attack islands for you. So this is a game of kind of a game of conquest. You'll be using diplomacy on some islands, or isles, I should say, not islands, but isles. You'll be using diplomacy on some isles, but you'll also be attacking some isles as well, so that way you can get more stuff. It's very cool. Getting to train the sea serpents to attack islands is a very cool system, and of course it's got, you know, a lot of attacking going on, but you're not really attacking other players. You can attack an island or an isle that's controlled by another player, but that doesn't happen too often because it's a lot harder to attack a isle that's occupied by your opponent than it is just the natives on the isle itself. So there's not a lot of attacking going on against other players. It's against just the normal isles. So it's a really good game, especially for those who aren't really into take that games. This one is definitely not really a take that game. Not really. So just a really good Red Raven game. And it's also got all sorts of interesting races involved, because it is within the world of Arzium. Okay, so it's within the world of Arzium. It's got lizard people and the logos and parrot folk and frog folk and boar folk and fish folk and all that. So really, really cool game. Definitely in my top 20 favorite games. So this is number 19. All right, so here is number 18, Barron Park. This is a polyomino game. It's by Lookout Games, and it's one of Phil Walker Harding's games as well. This is just really cool. You basically are sort of building a zoo, but you're really only building a zoo for bears and koalas, which aren't actually bears, of course, but they've been called koala bears on occasion, and so they decided to put the koala bear, or say the koala, in this game as well. But yes, you'll be building sort of an animal park or a zoo, and it's going to be polyomino game. This isn't my favorite polyomino game, but it's a really good one, and it's definitely one of the best I've ever played, for sure. So that's why it makes it to number 18, Barron Park, which is apparently German for Bear Park. Okay, so number 17 is Carcassonne Safari. Now, I like Carcassonne, but I don't like it as much as some of the standalone Carcassonne games. And so Carcassonne Safari here is a standalone game by Z-Man Games. In this game, you'll be basically building trails instead of roads, obviously. You'll be placing animals down to, basically get more points for the variety of animals that are on the trail or in the bush, which is like the version of a village or a town for the regular Carcassonne. And you'll also be getting more animals by placing your meeples onto baobab trees as well. And then there's another mechanic where you can actually build little oases with the animals that you place in corners of the tiles. You can build oases as well and get points for that as well. So there's definitely something more, a little bit more going on with this particular standalone Carcassonne game. And that's why it's number 17. That's why I made it to number 17 in my top 20 favorite games. Carcassonne Safari. Okay, so number 16 is Tiny Towns from Alderac Entertainment Group, or AEG Games. So Tiny Towns is kind of an interesting building game. You'll be placing out resources onto a little grid in a particular, like, Tetris style order to basically turn it into a building, basically, or build the building. But in this game, your opponents will be choosing a resource, and everyone else must go with that resource, even if they don't really have space for it. So it's a very tight game, because if you're playing, like, let's say with 4 people, that means it'll be 4 rounds before you'll get to choose the resource. So obviously, if you're choosing the resource, it's going to help you, but it might not necessarily help your opponents out. So there's a lot of player interaction with Tiny Towns, and there's some animal folk involved. If you get one of the expansions, Tiny Towns Villagers, it actually adds some animal meeples to the game, so you get this feeling that it's a town with animal folk or critters. So obviously, that's why this game, Tiny Towns, made it to my top 20 favorite games. That's why it is number 16. All right, so number 15. Number 15 is Wingspan. This was in my top 10 last year for sure, and it's dropped down a little bit because it is an engine building game when you're trying to place out birds in your aviaries in your aviary, but it really is contingent on what birds you get in the beginning of the game. Sometimes I've played this game where I just don't get the birds that really provide that engine building that I like about this game. And so that's why it's dropped down a little bit and, you know, made it into my top 20, but didn't make it to my top 10. Now, Wingspan is still a really awesome game, and I enjoy playing it. There's a couple expansions for it now, which add, obviously, even more birds to the equation from other parts of the world. So we're starting to get that tropical feeling to the game now that there's, you know, more tropical birds involved in the game. And there's a lot of interesting abilities that the expansions provide. It's a really fun game as you're, you know, placing birds in your aviary and laying eggs and gathering food from the bird feeder, which has a little dice tower that you get to put the dice in. So that's really cool. It comes with a dice tower bird house. It's not the best dice tower on the planet, but it's still very functional, and I enjoy using it, although some don't as much. But for someone who didn't have a dice tower and they bought the game, I loved it a lot. I still love Wingspan very, very much. So that's why it is my number 15 favorite in my top 20 favorite games. Okay. So, number 14. Number 14 is Cascadia. This game has not been out for very long. I got it just a little over a month ago, Cascadia. It's by Flat Out Games, but it's also from Alderac Entertainment Group, AEG Games. So another AEG game, just like Tiny Towns, right? Now this game is very easy, it's very fun. You have a few different animals, five different animals that you can place out that live in this region of Cascadia, which goes from like the Yukon all the way to Idaho, which is where I live, Idaho. So, you know, this is very close to my heart because it's in my area. So the animals that are in this game are live around me, although we don't see bears walking around our house, thankfully. But yeah, we do see some of the animals here that are in this game occasionally. Anyways, so Cascadia, you're going to be placing out tiles, trying to build a biome or a landscape, and there's 5 different landscapes, and you're trying to build the biggest of each of the 5 landscapes, okay? That's kind of the objective, but you're also trying to place animals in certain areas because they score each differently. Like one of the ways you can score for bears is having a pair of bears. So you have to place 2 bears right next to each other to form a pair of bears, but you can't have any other bears, you know, adjacent to those bears. Otherwise, you get 0 points. So that's just like one of the ways you're going to score for animals. So it's really fun. It's really enjoyable. It's super easy. This is definitely a family game. It's definitely a game for people who aren't necessarily gamers. This is a good game to start them off with because it's really simple and the rules are easy to understand. Just a simple, easy, fun, very fun game. And considering that I've only had it for like a month, it made it to my top 20 nonetheless. So awesome. Very awesome game. So Cascadia, that's why this one is my number 14. All right, they're gonna start getting heavier now. Okay, so this one is my number 13 favorite game, Dominion. Dominion is what got me into board gaming. It's a deck building game. This expansion, Dominion Menagerie, is my favorite expansion to Dominion, and it came out last year, so it's very new still. It's only it's not even necessarily a year, well, it's a little over a year old, but it's almost 2 years old, I guess. It's getting there, but this game has to do with animals. There's more animals involved in this game, and I love animals, so that's one of the reasons why I like it so much. But you also have a new game mechanic that's called Exile, and I really love that mechanic, Exile. It's awesome, the best. But you know, Dominion is the reason why I got into board games, and so Dominion is always going to have a special place in my board gaming collection because it was the first, and it's still an awesome game. I enjoy playing this a lot. So, but it didn't quite make it to top 10. So that's why I wanted to make a top 20. This was the reason. Well, this was like one of the reasons why I wanted to do a top 20 favorite games this year, because I wanted to include this into the equation as well. This was one of the reasons, because it's just such a great game. I love Dominion, and that's why it made it to my number 13. Okay, this is even heavier, mostly because I've added some expansions. This is Terraforming Mars by Stronghold Games. It's my number 12. Now, I really love Terraforming Mars, even more than Dominion, just a little bit more than Dominion. I really love the Prelude expansion for this game. It's awesome. And I've got two other expansions for Terraforming Mars as well. They're in a separate box though. But Terraforming Mars is basically engine building. You've got cards, you're going to be playing them to try to basically terraform Mars by placing out water tiles to basically create an ocean, or forests to basically increase the oxygen on the planet, or other types of cards so that way you can increase the temperature as well. Hence, the reason why it's getting so hot. Temperature is definitely going up in here. But Terraforming Mars is just a super fun game. There's definitely a lot of going on with it, but not necessarily the most complex game I own either. It's an awesome game. I love it. And this is another reason why I wanted to do a top 20 this year. So Terraforming Mars, that is my number 12. And my number 11, the heaviest game I have, physically heavy anyways, and one of the most complex games as well. I would have to say this is my second most complex game. Tidal Blades, Heroes of the Reef, Part 1. So I just heard recently Part 2 was played at a convention or something like that, so that might be interesting. I might get that someday, who knows. But I really love this first one, and at the beginning of the year, this was in my top 10. It just recently got bumped down within the last couple of months, and so this was the main reason why I wanted to do a top 20 this year, because I wanted to talk about Tidal Blades just a little bit, because it's a really awesome game, and like I said, it almost made it to top 10. It almost stayed in the top 10. It's an awesome game. So in Tidal Blades, Heroes of the Reef, it's sort of like a worker placement game, but you only have one worker. And so you'll move that worker around the board, but then you'll have to leave a disc behind so no one else can go to that same spot as you. So it gets a little tight at the end of each round because there's less places to go for a worker placement game. Obviously, that makes a lot of sense. Another thing I like about this game is there's a lot of dice rolling. There's a lot of dice in this game, tons. So there's a lot of dice rolling going on. The competitions in this game is awesome. I love that a lot, where they're basically competing and trying to win the judges' favor, trying to increase their stats, like their synergy and their spirit and their energy and stuff like that, so that way they can do better in challenges. And the challenges are really cool. They're like the gauntlet types. They're kind of like a gauntlet. And there's wave races, so there's like wave races as well. There's just a lot going on with this game. It's an awesome game. But as all this is going on, as there's an audience watching this, competition going on, there are sea monsters attacking. So not only are you going to be using dice for competitions, but you'll need them to fight off the sea monsters that will come and try to attack. And so the sea monsters are awesome. Absolutely love all of the sea monsters that are involved in this game. Awesome, awesome mechanic, awesome game. And I love the characters. One of my favorite characters is Cayman, and he's a crocodile. Awesome, I love crocodiles. Perfect, I love that. And then there's an Echo, and she's a Zoltol, so that's even cooler, because that's another animal. So, another animal folk. So that's another reason why I like this game, because there's a lot of animal folk involved. And they even added an expansion already to the game when this came out that added a chameleon as well as one of the playable characters. So I like that a lot as well. So, man, Tidal Blades is awesome. Man, it almost made it to my top 10. But this was the reason why I wanted to share my top 20 with you, everybody. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to leave a like if you guys liked any of the games that made it to my 11 through 20 games. And when I see you guys next, I'll have a guest star with me, and we will share our favorite top 10 games together in probably 2 videos. We'll try to split down to 2 videos, and we'll try to keep it as short as possible since we'll be sharing our lists as well as a couple of our friends. So like I said, thanks for watching, and don't forget to leave a like, and the next time you see me, I'll be in a different location, and I'll be with a friend. See you guys next time.